we are live and we are recording, and there are already attendees ready and raring to go, which is great. I am just so delighted to have you here, and of friends who are joining us right now for the Neshoba Area Social Justice Alliance book club meeting with special guest doctors Lexie and Lindsay Kite. You are in the right place. We're just going to give everybody a second to join. And so this is the part for me where I get to kind of get to do a getting to know you. And so Lexie and Lindsay, you are both beaming in from far, far away. So tell us a little bit about like where you are and what you're looking at and why it's so much more fabulous probably than what we're looking at out our windows.
Go, Linz.
Well, I don't think that's true. I don't know. I'm in Manhattan, so it's kind of a weird place to be during a pandemic, but I still love it so much. And I'm like I'm in Midtown, so I'm just like in the middle of everything, looking out at Fifth Avenue.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah. So it's a pretty skyline, but it's a very dreary, foggy day, so you can't even see the buildings. It's pretty wild.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I am in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I am looking out at a huge, beautiful, snowy mountain right now. It's a blue sky day, not a cloud in the sky. I've been out with my babies at the playground like all day, and it was a great day. It's a great day to be in Salt Lake City. But, you know, Massachusetts is super beautiful.
It is. It's super beautiful. What's the temperature though? Like, what's the temperature in Utah today?
It's 65 degrees.
Yeah.
Jealous.
Yeah, very jealous. Exactly. Yeah, because it was, what was it here, y'all? It was 45 and rainy.
45.
Is that what we got today? Yeah.
But yesterday was beautiful, so we were all kind of in shock today with the rain. After yesterday, our babies were out running around all day. They were much easier to put to bed last night than tonight.
Oh yeah. You guys have kids, both of you?
Yes, I have a boy and a girl, 5 and 3.
And I have 2 boys, a 7-year-old and a 20-month-old.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, baby.
My baby Lane is 16 months, so she's, you know, about the same age.
Yeah.
And so cute and funny. And my daughter Logan is 5, just turned 5.
Oh, best ages. So great. Oh.
Yeah, it's great.
I miss them a lot. They're so cute.
Lindsay
Lainey kisses the phone when I FaceTime, which is like my greatest joy.
Sweetest.
Yeah, it's really cute. Lindsay lived with me in a small condo with my husband and 2 children while Lane was a newborn during the pandemic.
And the first 3 months of the pandemic on accident, I lived with them.
You survived. You're here to tell the story.
I was like, can I go back to New York? Please, can I have my own tiny little apartment? No, it was great, especially with the baby. It was amazing.
Yeah, but that's cozy. That must have been cozy.
It was absolutely cozy. We didn't leave the house. We like watched a show together at night, you know?
Yeah. That was the highlight, watching a show. Yeah, it was a rough time. Yeah. We're better now.
Were you guys writing the book then? Or were you already done?
We were doing edits.
Yeah.
We were doing our final round of edits at that point.
And we made some big edits. So it was stressful. And we were sitting, and we also have other full-time jobs, demanding ones. So we were sharing a wall. My bedroom was sharing a wall with her bedroom. She was in our guest room, and we would email each other back and forth to make sure we were writing. It was stressful. Oh my gosh.
And then the book finally came out in December. Is that right? I was just telling everyone, I love this texture. Every time I gave this book to someone else, they were like, wow, this feels different.
Yes. It is a hefty thing. It is. Okay, so before y'all really get into it, let me do my spiel and then I will disappear on y'all. Hi, my name is Kara Wilson-Cook. I am the events coordinator for the Silver Unicorn bookstore in Acton, Massachusetts. And yes, I have to say that because I feel like we probably have an audience that has now expanded a little bit past just the Neshoba, Acton, Central Mass area. So if you have never heard of the Silver Unicorn before, welcome. We're so delighted to have you for this really special event with the Neshoba Area Social Justice. Yes, I have to look at my notebook alliance book club and with doctors Lindsay and Lexie Kite, PhDs, who are the authors of this beautiful book, More Than a Body. We've only been together for about 15 minutes, just this small group, and it's already turned into an awesome just friend circle. So you are really in for a treat. I just have a couple of quick housekeeping things, and then I'm going to disappear and let this discussion happen. You should know that this is a Zoom webinar, which means that we can't see you and we can't hear you. However, you are invited to ask your questions of everyone here by submitting them into the Q&A. And you are also invited to just chat amongst yourselves. We know that this is a book club, so please feel free to put in your comments or your affirmations in the chat. So chat for affirmations and chit chat. Q&A for actual questions. This book, More Than a Body, if you have not read it, is a really big deal. And it is available to you at the Silver Unicorn Bookstore, which is open, or silverunicornbooks.com. And I just learned that we will be getting signed book plates for this book in the very near future. So if you don't have your copy yet, you can get it. And just make sure that when you order it, you put in the comments section that you would like a signed book plate. I'm pretty sure that that's it. I'm going to disappear now. I'll be back in the last 5 minutes of the event just to break up what I know is going to be a party. And I'm going to be really, really sad to do that. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Lexie. And thank you so much, Lindsay, for beaming in all the way from far away to be with us this evening. And thank you, Kelly and Tiffany, for choosing us to help facilitate this. We're just delighted to have you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kira.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for hosting, Kira, and to the Silver Unicorn Bookstore. They've been helping our book club out so much. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the Neshoba Area Social Justice Alliance, and NASJA is what we call ourselves. But our mission is to encourage welcoming and inclusive communities by collaborating with local residents and organizations to promote social justice. So that's kind of how we came together, Tiffany and I. This group was the brainchild of Abby Morgan, a Stowe resident. And we just want to have monthly book clubs to talk about these difficult conversations, to kind of open everyone's eyes to loving themselves more, which is what, you know, your book really did for me. Yeah. So thanks for being here.
We're so happy to be here. Thank you so much for hosting us. And thanks for choosing our book for your club.
Yeah, totally.
Hi, I'll give myself a quick intro too. I'm Tiffany and I'm a member of NASJA with Kelly. I live in Stowe and I was bugging Kelly about adding this book to the book club as soon as it came out. I was just telling Lexie and Lindsay about this book, and prior to this, they had an online course that were life-changing to me in the course of my eating disorder recovery. And we'll get more into what's in the book, but just like body image and everything else was so much more than I thought it was. Like there was just so much more to it. So I'm so grateful to have you both here and for the support of the Silver Unicorn to make this happen.
Oh, thank you so much, Tiffany. We're so honored.
Thank you.
And Lindsay and Lexie, do you guys want to give a quick intro just in case anyone out there is brand new?
Yeah. So I'm Lindsay and you've seen Lexie. We're identical twins. We started doing this stuff together back in 2009 when we were finishing up our master's degrees actually at the University of Utah. And we together created a visual presentation that was all about body image and how to help people recognize and reject some of the harmful messages about bodies in our culture and in media. And we started taking that all over the place to school districts and treatment centers and universities and stuff like that. And over time, it just grew from like a little blog called Beauty Redefined to an Instagram page at beauty_redefined and speaking engagements on a larger scale and all kinds of social media activism that we've done, our online course, and of course our book, which is by far the most exciting development to happen in our like academic and social justice activism careers. So we are so grateful for the opportunity to be able to have this book out in the world that really kind of condenses 10 plus years of research. We finished up our PhDs on this subject in 2013, and the research just really went hand in hand. Lexie and I didn't work together on it, but it was really complementary. And it's all about just this idea of body image resilience, how we can help people to go through difficult things in this very objectifying culture and then come out stronger and more compassionate and even have more respect for their bodies because of the hard things they've gone through, not just in spite of them. So everything we do revolves around that idea, more than a body.
Yeah, if I can just add to that as kind of a foundation for what we'll talk about tonight, this idea of body image resilience. This is like this shining ray of light at the end of the body shame tunnel that so many girls and women live in, and an increasing number of boys and men. Body image resilience in our research was this model we created to help people see that the body shame triggers you experience in your life, the big ones and the small ones. Like the big ones are abuse, assault, injury, illness, bullying. The smaller ones might be gaining weight or, aging or having a baby, having a miscarriage, having somebody say something about your body, seeing a picture of yourself you don't like, your jeans don't fit anymore, and on and on and on. All of these triggers, these things that we call disruptions, these can be catalysts for you to grow, to progress, to learn more, not to hate yourself more, not to hide and fix yourself away as a project that consumes your whole life, but to recognize the pain and the shame that we so often swallow as part of our comfort zone. We just think that's the way we have to live. This is what it means to identify as female. This is what I get, and instead to be able to see that pain every time it rises up as an opportunity to come back home to yourself, to practice skills and strengths that will help you become more resilient, to turn all of these, unreal and unattainable ideals on their heads, to make this culture serve you in ways that otherwise, so many of us are left floating in a sea of objectification forever that we'll never get out of. So we hope that our work is hopeful and happy and can help you see the pain, but then also rise again and again in the face of it. And we all rise together.
I think that's exactly what your book accomplished. I mean, it was definitely about loving yourself and teaching women to be more empowered and use that as a catalyst for positive change. I like how you said that because, sometimes we can just get stuck in this spiral of shame. I've done some reading around Brene Brown, and she kind of started opening my eyes to the shame that was there that I just never saw. Yeah, just to kind of get started with one question, what are some really tactful ways that we can kind of combat body shaming and fat shaming?
I think one of the first ways is to be aware of it, like to be aware of how deeply rooted it is for us to see ourselves and other people as bodies first and people second. And that's really where a lot of the fat phobia is rooted. We obviously, larger bodies, fat bodies are stigmatized and moralized in negative ways. There's all kinds of stereotypes projected onto people in larger bodies. And we know what those stereotypes are, so I won't go into detail there. But that is all part of this culture that values women in particular as bodies first and as people second, and that defines health and success and desirability and all other positive attributes along the lines of how people look. Like, it's hard to be, the best possible person while also not having an ideal body in our own minds and in the minds of other people. And so some of the tactics that we can take have to start and really be rooted in this idea that we need to recognize that objectification, the way it has seeped into the ways we view ourselves and the ways we judge and evaluate and monitor our own bodies and other people's bodies as well. When we are able to recognize that bias, that prejudice, that judgment, especially toward people in larger bodies, including our own bodies when they're larger than we think they should be, then that can help us to be able to make actual tangible steps toward uprooting it, toward dismantling it, making people more comfortable and providing, greater access to healthcare, to confidence, to happiness, to all of the things that we want for everyone in our lives that are a little bit more out of reach when everyone's being so judged and stigmatized.
So one of the things, like when we're talking about what body shame and what fat phobia and objectification look like on the ground floor, like in our everyday lives, it shows up way more than you expect. And we all perpetuate it. It's like, it comes up when people are passing food around the table and your mom says, "Oh, I can't eat that. Oh, I've gained so much weight lately. I'm going to have to unbutton my pants," and talks about her diet. how do the other bodies in the room feel about themselves when your mom is talking about herself in that way? Like we on Instagram this last week, we quoted Sonia Renee Taylor from her book, The Body is Not an Apology. And I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but she's basically saying that people are listening to you, and the same venom you spew at yourself, they think you feel about them the same way. So when we talk badly about ourselves in any way, I feel fat, I feel ugly, oh my gosh, I'm having such a gross, ugly day today. All of these things, you're just inviting other people to view themselves as bodies. You're reminding them that they are being watched, that you are judging them, that other eyes are judging them. It shows up just in all of the ways you wouldn't even be able to imagine it. But we want people to be aware of the many ways that we remind people to think about themselves as bodies first. And what can we do? Like, if we really believe in this work, that we are all more than bodies, what does that world look like? How would your actions, the way you talk, the way you raise your kids, how does it change when you see yourself and everybody else as more than a body? That means that you're not talking about other people's bodies. You're not talking about whether that woman gained weight or got a boob job, or, oh, she's been using a lot of Botox, her face doesn't move, whatever it might be. We're not talking about it because we're more than bodies. We're not talking about our own or others' bodies in any of these ways, because that's one of the best ways we can show that we're more. When we're working with little kids, whether in a school setting, if you're a teacher or you're raising your own kids, it means that when you see bullying come up, when you see a girl being bullied for being fat, you don't shut it down by saying, oh, you're not fat, you're beautiful, because that's setting up fat as the opposite of beautiful. We can't do that. That's fat phobia. That's just, we can't uproot it like that. Instead, we talk to her about the fact that there are lots of people and companies and TV shows that want us to believe that girls should take up as little space as possible, that tell us that girls have to look one way, and everybody, but especially girls, especially women. And we need to talk to them about why that's not okay. We don't talk about people as their bodies. All bodies are good. All bodies are different. Body diversity is good, and on and on and on. We could talk about this all day long.
I was thinking as you were talking too, that even positive body comments can have the same effect, because you're still reducing the person to more than a body. And I see this, like, my niece is on Instagram, and she's in high school, so she's quite a bit younger. And just seeing, like, when she posts a picture, it's just like hundreds of positive comments. But then I found out she has like a mirror account where she posts how she really feels about being on Instagram and how insecure it makes her feel and everything else. And this is like an account that's like flooded with positive comments, like, to me, as like an adult who has like 30 followers. But it still causes her a ton of like stress and insecurity. And I had never really thought about it that way, because we see things like the Dove beauty campaign that y'all wrote about too, like, whatever their slogan was about, like real beauty. Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's like to go beyond that. And then ultimately what Dove was trying to do, whether it was a lovely campaign or not, was sell us more things to convince us that if we buy these things, we can feel better. But I remember that campaign so vividly, and it seemed so revolutionary at the time, like this was a new thing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, like, it doesn't matter how many positive comments you get. It doesn't matter how many people think you're beautiful and perfect and whatever. In the end, if that is your main source of value and that's what you're putting out there in order to get that sort of validation and attention, it doesn't ultimately fix your problem, because your problem is much more deeply rooted than whether or not people right now think you're beautiful. Because in your mind, you know that you're being evaluated right now. You don't live up to that ideal. Your pictures maybe look better than you do in real life. And so even though you don't even think you look perfect in the pictures, it's still way better than what you're sitting here in front of the Zoom camera with. And it's just this constant preoccupation with how you look. And that is a hard thing to keep up for your whole life. We found that actually one of the more interesting things I think we discovered a long time ago is that a lot of times it's the girls and the women that are most beautiful, most traditionally, stereotypically beautiful, who often feel the furthest from the ideals and feel most fixated on their looks. Because usually from a very young age, they've been getting a lot of attention and validation for how they look. And so then they find that that's where a lot of their identity is rooted. And when those comments start to slow down, like aging, changing, growing, all the ways that our bodies change over time, and when the validation stops, then people are much more likely to try even harder to try to get that back, whether it's through procedures and dieting and buying all of the things that will supposedly make us look and feel better. It's a losing game. Like the finish line is way further away than we'll ever get to. And those goalposts keep getting moved every time we get any closer to it. So in some ways, it's good to take ourselves out of that game, to not get our value there, whether it's on Instagram or whether it's in real life, and to really try hard to seek our value through other facets of our lives and our personalities.
Yeah, if I can add on to that, I see a question here that goes along perfectly with what we're saying that we address in the book in a big way. Somebody says, so if a friend loses weight or gets a new haircut, what's the appropriate comment? Weight and haircut, two different things. Haircuts, people of all genders get haircuts. It's not sexist to comment on somebody's hair. Compliments are nice. We do encourage you to pair it up. You know, if you're giving a looks-based compliment, also go deeper, whether it's like just asking them how they're doing or, you know, talking to them about like what you really care about them that goes beyond the haircut, always good. But weight is a different story. Unless you know that your friend was like how she lost weight or why, or you have a very personal relationship with her where she already knows how you feel about her. We write in depth in the book about why we should never be commenting on somebody's weight loss or body size in general. For the most part, well, this goes two ways. One is you don't know how people lose the weight and why. There are a million ways to lose weight that are not improving your health in any way, that are not improving your happiness in any way. But people in a fat phobic world believe from a million different places, and it's totally normal that we need to lose weight in order to be happy, to feel in control, to be loved, to be successful, and on and on and on. So it is no wonder most of us are dieting. Most of us are trying to lose weight in some way. But the problem is, and research shows, that something like 97% of all people who lose weight, who diet to lose weight, will regain it within a couple of years. If you are complimenting your friend on her weight loss, I guarantee you that those comments will weigh so incredibly heavy in a couple of years when she gains the weight back. She will remember how she was validated and how those comments have stopped. It's happened to me in my years of yo-yo dieting. It's probably happened to all of us when we've been complimented on our bodies. And for many people, those compliments are fueling disordered eating. They are fueling diet pills that are wrecking our hearts. They are fueling over-exercising and all of the ways that we are damaging our health, our bodies, our metabolism in a pursuit of weight loss that's never actually going to serve us.
And we've received hundreds, if not thousands, of messages and comments from people who say, yes, please tell people to not comment on weight unless they know exactly how and why and how that person is feeling. Don't go ahead and comment, especially not in a positive way, about somebody's weight, because we saw comments of people who had stomach cancer and were praised up and down for their weight loss. We got comments from, and there's one about pancreatic cancer I see in the comment section. Absolutely, we've seen so many of those. People who are depressed, people whose parents died or a child died or they went through a miscarriage. People will lose weight for lots of unhappy reasons. And in our fat phobic culture, when we associate weight loss with improvement, then we may be doing a lot of harm. So we really just recommend ask questions instead of commenting. Like, you don't have to totally pretend like you don't see anything. Our bodies are visible, and it's all right to dig if it's somebody that you care about, that you know well. It's all right to say, like, how are you feeling? You know, like, what's going on in your life? Tell me about it. And they may open up about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to approach it from a curious perspective than a congratulatory perspective, we found.
Wow. I don't think I ever noticed my body more until I was pregnant. Oh. And, you know, the positive and negative and outlandish comments that you get from other people that are just constantly talking about you and your body. And, you know, like, let's focus on the baby, but the focus is always on the body. And so, you know, what you're saying here, talking about, I didn't realize body discrimination until I read your book, and how, you know, this is so open and practiced, like it's commonplace. And so we have to unlearn and we have to relearn, so that we all live healthier, happier lives, like you say.
Totally.
Yeah, and I think as Kelly was talking, I was thinking about the concept of body privilege that you guys touch on right off the bat in the first I think the introduction even,
Yeah.
you know, that there are certain bodies that just have more privilege. Would you guys be able to talk over that a little bit and how that plays
definitely.
out?
It was really important for us to acknowledge right up front, and we put it in the introduction for a reason, that we carry our own privilege in this conversation. You know, we've always tried to center our research. It really is research first. It's not us. It's not just our personal perspectives and feelings. It's not just how our bodies have been perceived and judged in this world, though obviously that's a factor that led us to this work in the first place because it deeply resonated with us. But we recognize that, you know, we grew up as pretty average, athletic, middle-class, privileged, white, straight, able-bodied girls. And yet we felt disgusted with our bodies and obsessed with improving our beauty and losing weight from the time we were super young. And it turns out that was not a unique perspective to come from. And it didn't matter all of those other, the differences that people had. So many of us, if we were girls and women in particular, we felt self-conscious. We felt really fixated on how our bodies looked. And so we acknowledge in our book right up front that this is something that absolutely carries privilege. Like, you may feel bad about your body. You may be self-conscious. There's absolutely no denying that. Even the most typically beautiful, you know, ideal looking women often, like I said, experience some severe body shame and fixation on their appearance. They may self-objectify more than somebody else who hasn't been so defined by how they look and valued for it. But there's a difference between feeling bad about yourself and then being actively discriminated against, having actual bias against you and real prejudice out in the world, like people in larger bodies have. It's not just like feeling self-conscious when a thin woman, like a size 6 woman, hunches over and has a couple little belly rolls or has some stretch marks or whatever and gets 100,000 comments about how brave she is. It's like, if you don't fit in a traditional airplane seat or a movie theater seat, if you can't walk into a regular store, just some mainstream store on the street and find clothes that fit you, these are ways that people actually face bias, that, and not to mention the discrimination in the healthcare industry, the people who go in for I don't know, some routine medical problem. A sore throat.
One of my friends said, I went to the doctor because I had a sore throat, and that's not what they talked to me about at all.
And they say, oh, well, have you thought about losing weight? You know, that's something that would actually help cut back on whatever. And it always comes back to weight. This is a real, it's a systemic issue. And women of color are facing even greater difficulties in this environment as people who are objectified along a couple of different axes, with race and gender being huge factors. We have to be aware of all of the different ways that this weighs on people in a real way. And especially as white women, to acknowledge the privilege that we carry in not having to think about the color of our skin as a way that we are discriminated against, because that is one of those intersections that's just layered on someone who is a person of color, someone who is not cisgender, someone who's not straight or able-bodied. All of these are different ways that people face even greater discrimination and stigma.
And it feels like body discrimination is one of the few forms of discrimination that's still like openly practiced and almost condoned in society, because it's wrapped up in weight and messaged as this is a health promoting thing. And it's as if people owe you this health. So, you know, it's like people can openly comment that they feel a person who's in a larger body is unhealthy or something else. And it's really disturbing how, even if going to a medical visit, like Kelly was saying, her friend, that it's just an open thing that can occur, and the shame and the fear that must bring, and even going to a doctor's office.
Absolutely. In our book, in so much of our work, and a lot of the foundation of Lindsay's doctoral research was about the ways that health has been conflated with beauty in a really profit-driven system to absolutely skew our perceptions of what health is, because we believe that health has a look, that you will always be able to tell if somebody's healthy because they are thin, because they are toned, because they look healthy. And that's just simply not true. There are a million different bits of anecdotal evidence, plus a lot of research that backs up the fact that your activity level is a better indicator of your health than your weight, your size, your body mass index, any of those things. And in real life, we know this is true. I'm definitely I'm pretty sure I'm the fattest I've ever been. I'm also the healthiest I've ever been. I work out every day. I love it. I don't do it to change the way my body looks. I do it for my mental health, for my confidence, for my self-efficacy, to know that I can do hard things, that I can hike with my husband and not be so nervous that I'm going to hold him back because I'm having to take breaks every few minutes. Like, it's been incredible for me. And my body hasn't changed. One thing we know from our research is that, especially women, when women make aesthetic goals the center of their exercise routine, if they are hoping to change something about their body, get abs, get a bigger butt, lose weight, whatever the thing is, when they don't hit those goals like they thought they would, because they're sold from a million ways that their body will look different if they're healthy or fit, in quotes, then women stop working out. Then we go the opposite direction. We swing the other way because we feel disgusted. We feel that shame rise up that tells us we can never fix ourselves. And the truth is that when you can set goals, like we do when we talk about the fact that your body is an instrument, not an ornament, this game-changing idea, then your whole life changes. And the way that health looks changes too, because you can't tell your health by how you look. But in a world where most of us believe the lies we've been sold from a million places that health has a certain look, it is so easy for people to be discriminated against. It is so easy for even your healthcare provider that you think you should be able to trust to be bought into this very profit-driven, very cheap and easy metric like the body mass index that doesn't actually tell you anything about your actual health, your internal indicators of health, your blood sugar, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, all of these things. Your body mass index will never tell you that. So we speak up about this. We need people to recognize health doesn't have a look. People are struggling with disordered eating and serious eating disorders on all sizes of the spectrum. You can't tell, which goes the same for very thin women. You can't tell a very thin woman she needs to go eat a cheeseburger because she must not be eating. That's also discrimination. Those thin women can fit in standard clothing sizes and standard public seating, so they are not discriminated against in the same way that people in larger bodies are. They just are not. But
they feel bad, and
yes,
we would never take that away from somebody, because we recognize that body shame shows up in the people that you might least expect it in really serious ways. But it's not systemic discrimination that has a negative effect on their life, because they do fit into kind of the standard ideal that exists in our culture.
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing when you start really digging into what privilege looks like. And I think sometimes people get really defensive, thinking like, well, I don't have this privilege that you're describing. I've had a really hard life. And like, I may be white, but I still have had people say negative things about me. And I haven't had all of the great things that should come with having privilege. And I think it's really important for people to kind of just be aware of that tendency to be defensive, when maybe it's about privilege and maybe it's about anything else that we talk about objectification and dress codes and all that kind of stuff that might go against your current belief system. It might challenge something that you've always believed, something that you kind of hope for. Like, you hope that by losing weight, that will be your key to greater health or desirability and love and all those kinds of things and happiness. And it kind of makes you feel good to have that belief system in place. And when we come and try to take that away from you and say that actually it doesn't really work like that, and we can show you in all these different ways why, then a lot of people are defensive and they do want to lash out or argue or try to dispel what you've said in order to maintain that comfortable belief system that they've always had. And I just want people to be aware, to recognize when that defensiveness comes up and what it might mean to have your beliefs challenged, and to sit in that uncomfortableness, to be okay with it and really be open to the challenge, be open to deciding if your defensiveness is because maybe you heard something that did resonate. Maybe you read something that does challenge what you've believed and might be true. If there's room for that and room to explore that, then I think that's a really positive thing.
Yeah. And I like, how you talk about privilege, and, obviously a lot of people, sometimes we're sensitive, especially to white privilege as a white woman, I've been in that boat too. But then, you know, you talk about the intersectionality, and I think you mentioned, you know, Kimberly Crenshaw in your book too. You know, our identity is defined in a million ways that we're not always aware of or thinking about. And that is what I'm just personally becoming more aware of this year. You know, you've said it, like, such your gender, right? Your ability, your language. And so I'm also a teacher. And so, you know, students, you know, I'm a high school teacher. So, you know, young girls are dealing with these concepts, you know, in society, and they're not real. Are they calling it objectification? You know, I don't exactly teach them that, but, you know, maybe we should start to do some better media literacy. But what I noticed even in our school, you know, to think about equity is, you know, people of different body types, and there's like a t-shirt sale, but no one gave a size that no one gave them a choice because the size wasn't available for them, for their body type. And then we also have desks that are attached, the chair is attached to the desk. And so there are body types that will not fit into our desk. And then I've talked to people who've experienced the shame, and just going to the auditorium, they work themselves up into so much anxiety because they're not going to have a seat that works for them. And so that's something that through my privilege, I never thought about, but discrimination, it's real.
It really is. And it's so important to be aware of those things because they are invisible to most people. Like, if you've lived your life in a body that maybe you're uncomfortable with and embarrassed by, but it still fits in standard seating, and you never even have to think about where you're going to sit, then you do carry around this privilege that other people don't necessarily have access to. And so to be able to be an ally in that space, to be aware of where the good seats are, where the wider seats, the seats with no arms, the ordering of seats for classrooms, when you have an opportunity to weigh in on decisions like that and advocate for other people who don't fit in a standard size chair or desk, then you're making a way for a future where there is less stigma, where there is less shame. There's simply more access for people of all different sizes. And that's a way that we're really standing up and not just saying that body diversity is good and okay, but we are showing that it's good, that it's normal, that we have room and space for everybody, and no one needs to avoid situations or be embarrassed when they show up and there's not somewhere that they can comfortably just exist in the room with all the rest of us.
Sure. And it feels like it's such a simple thing. But I would say, like, I was a teacher too back in the day. Like, it's something I never even thought of, like accessibility for all bodies and seating are things we do. Like, it wasn't something we considered, even though we try to consider so many other things that our students' needs. If we can pivot for a moment, and I was talking all year about this before we started, the concept of self-objectification, and you guys have touched on it a little bit as we've been talking, but that like totally blew my mind because I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know that I was constantly doing it, and that it was a huge hindrance in my life. Like, my mom is on here, I think right now, like I didn't speak in class for like 20 years, and like, because I would picture myself and feel so self-conscious, I wouldn't even raise my hand even though I knew the answer. And like, if you guys can just talk a little bit about that, like, I think there's just so much there. But it's like, I was describing it to my husband too, like, and he was like, I don't live like that. Like, I thought everyone lived like that. I thought that's like what you did. You pictured yourself going on vacation, or you pictured yourself doing this thing. Maybe it's because I started out dancing ballet, or like, I don't even remember when it started exactly, but I really thought that's how everyone lived their life. I didn't know there was a different way to function.
Oh, I love hearing your story. It hurts, you know, but the fact that you can articulate how self-objectification showed up and has shown up in your life is so powerful, because this is a concept that when like I discovered it in very early in my master's degree, like in probably 14, 15 years ago, I remember reading about this research about how, especially women, our identities would split. We would live and we would picture ourselves living, and how research showed that that wasn't just like a normal natural state that we all just have to live in, you know, because we're women, but instead it's this thing that harms us. It hurts our progress in every conceivable way. And then so much research has been done about when you're in a state of feeling self-conscious, even when you are alone in a room, you can't perform as well on math tests and reading comprehension tests. You can't throw a softball as far. You can't lift as heavy of weights. You can't get into a flow state when you're working out or creating art or whatever the thing is, because your identity is split in two. You are doubled. And so in our book, and in all of our work, this has been such a central piece of the puzzle, because if you can see the way your life, your experience has been impacted by monitoring your body from the outside, by picturing how you look to people you don't even care about. You know, self-objectification looks like you're walking down the street, and instead of thinking about what a beautiful day it is, you are thinking about what the person walking toward you thinks about how you look, when you don't even actually care about how they think you look. It's just this thing that comes into your head. I need to adjust this stuff. I need to keep my chin up. On Zoom, instead of hearing what the person is saying, you're just looking at yourself and you're just making sure that everything is in place and you don't like what you see. And research shows that all of this is deeply and forever impacting girls and women. Like, it's halting our progress and our happiness. So what we want for people to know is to first see it, like first know it. Know how self-objectification shows up in your life, how it has impacted you. The first time, think back to the first time you felt yourself split. I remember being in second grade, being really worried about what I wore every day. I got so comfortable with one particular outfit that I thought made me look skinny, a big sweatshirt and leggings, that I wanted to wear it every day. And it breaks my heart thinking about that. Is my 5-year-old daughter going to do the same thing? Well, I am going to try with all of my might to make sure she doesn't. And so far, so good. So far, not a word about, being ashamed of herself. But what we want people to know is that there is a way out of self-objectification. The first step is seeing it and mourning the loss of how much you've been impacted by it. But the second step is being able to, every time it happens, because it will continue to happen, you will constantly find yourself thinking about how you appear. You catch it, you call it out, and you bring yourself back home. What works for you to come back home? Does it work for you to step back into your senses, to use your senses to smell the air, to look around at what you're seeing, to feel your body, feel the air, look down at yourself, realize that this body is the same body you have had since the moment you were born. This body that you have always dragged around like a burden is not a burden. It's a miracle, no matter how it functions, no matter how it looks. Your body is such an incredible instrument because you're living and breathing. Like this body has been with you through every scar, through every joy, through every bit. It is a miracle. And yet we have been taught to perceive ourselves according to our worst fears of what somebody else might be thinking when they look at us. That is so deeply sad. When we can come home to ourselves, when we can embody ourselves, prioritize our own experience inside our bodies instead of somebody else's experience of looking at us, the whole world opens up. Can you imagine? Like, if all girls and women in the world could fight self-objectification, even just 50% of the time, if we could get 50% of our energy back during the day, the world would be revolutionized. Ugh.
And I will just say that self-objectification is this missing piece of the puzzle in the body image conversation. That the reason we harp on this so much, the reason that we led with this in our book and in everything we do, is because that's the piece that people are missing when they try to fix women's body image issues and thus their confidence issues. Because they're going to women and girls, whether it's through big marketing campaigns or well-meaning speakers and organizations and PSAs, and they're saying, you're so beautiful just the way you are, flaws and all. Your flaws make you beautiful. Like, you're more attractive than you think you are. And for a second, this feels good. For a second, this is a great thing and a nice reminder that we all need to hear. The problem is it does not take into account the fact that we are recentering beauty over and over again as the most important thing about you, as supposedly the key to your confidence and your happiness and your ability to move on in life without being fixated on your body. We know this is not true. Even if you feel beautiful right now, that could change in 2 seconds. You compare yourself to someone that you think looks better than you. You see advertising that tells you you'd look so much better if you cleared up your skin or got Botox or whatever. All of that is just so fleeting. And yet with self-objectification, we recognize that the real root of the problem is that we are fixated on being defined by beauty. It's not so much the beauty ideals that we're holding ourselves to. It's that underlying foundation that beauty is of utmost importance to womanhood, to our happiness and success and all of that. And so when we are able to root that out and identify the problem is self-objectification, the problem is viewing ourselves as objects instead of full-fledged humans with a first-person perspective that we should be living our lives through and prioritizing, then that's what allows us to actually move forward in this work, to take back some actual power, not just the fleeting power of feeling beautiful at this very moment and hoping other people see the same. I hope people can understand how that is actually a big difference in the body image conversation.
Mm-hmm. And we could also address this question in the chat that Abby just asked. How do you balance feeling good about yourself and the way you look and addressing cultural expectations? Like when I get dressed up, wear makeup, heels, I feel good about myself, but I also question, do I feel good about myself basically because this is how our society wants me to look? And that's a good question. We address this in the book a little bit when we talk about like taking inventory of your beauty work, you know, the kind of work that we require of women that we don't require of men. How much of it are you doing? You know, you talk about like things that Lindsay and I do. I get dressed up. I wear it, well, not in a year.
Yeah, I was going to say not so much anymore.
But yeah, like I'm wearing mascara. I covered my zits. I lined my eyebrows. Like these are things that are inherently sexist. Like at some point I will have to explain to my daughter that dad doesn't do these things, but I do, because we live in a sexist, patriarchal, profit-driven world that has convinced women we have to do all this extra work. And this shows up from the time you're little. With my daughters, in so many of the shows they're watching, I have to shut them down because the girls are decorative and the boys are who they are. The boys can be any character in the world. They can be the snowman. They can be the reindeer. They can be the all different sizes and shapes of whatever. The girls have to be beautiful. Even if it's like a shark, eyelashes, pearls, blush, a bow, you know? The men just get to be. And we do that in our own lives. So yes, we're all conforming in one way or another. Most all of us are. And it's okay to be straight with that. But we all need to draw the line on our own. Like, where do you draw that line? For me, I put on heels today, like just a little heel. It was like a wedge heel. And then I quickly realized that I have not worn heels in more than a year because these are uncomfortable. I've been wearing running shoes and it's great. So I'm going to prioritize my own comfort moving forward. And that might not look like I've been told it would look. My butt might not look like I've been told it should look because my shoes are flat. And that's okay, because what actually changes if I wear flats versus heels? Like what actually changes? Nothing at all. So it's a great question. And it's one that I think Lindsay and I would both say you draw the line for yourself, but prioritizing your experience and your comfort will always serve you in a way that others maybe perceived liking of how you look would never actually do.
And to address the other part of your question about if you feel good just because you're like living up to cultural expectations, yeah, of course. You know, like we live in this world that values beauty so much. And so when you get done up and you get closer to that ideal of beauty, then you feel like you look closer to the ideal of beauty, you know, like especially when, or if you wear makeup, if there are certain clothes that, you know, make your body look cinched in at the waist and curvy in the right places and all the ways that we've been taught that bodies today are supposed to look, then yeah, you're going to feel that. And it might be reflected in the way other people react toward you as well. I will say that sometimes this idea of looking good and feeling good is a myth that actually just lives in our minds that we think will solve some of our problems. Like sometimes we think if we get really done up, we will have a better time. We will attract better people. We will, you know, whatever good things we're really looking for. Because there are a lot of different narratives in our culture that have taught us that. A million different movies and TV shows and advertising campaigns that have been completely organized around the idea that women who look good, feel good, and are treated better. And it's just not necessarily true all the time. And so that's kind of what we addressed in the last chapter, is this ability to be critical of those feelings of empowerment that you get from looking beautiful, even if it's just in your own head and has nothing to do with how other people are reacting toward you. Be critical of those feelings, but also be willing to challenge them. Be willing to see if you could still have just as good of a time, if you could still feel great, if you could still feel confident and like yourself, if you might still get as positive of attention toward you, in whatever situation you're in, if you didn't go all out and get super dressed up. It's entirely possible. And yet we'll never know unless we try and find out. I definitely have done that. It's been a lot easier over the last year to not wear makeup every day and to just wear your, you know, crappy sweats and athleisure. Mine is not cute, athleisure, by the way. It's really easy to do that and go walk the streets and whatever. And I will say that I have proved to myself over and over again that like the getting whole done up thing, I'll do it on dates. I'm single. I'm 35, living in New York. I'm dating. So I will do some effort, but it's not going to be the maximum effort that I know I could do, because that's raising the bar for myself. And then I will think I need to do that next time. And I don't want to. So I try to keep it minimal, and everyone's going to draw that line for themselves. We encourage it, and we encourage people to not judge other people's lines, what they're comfortable with, but just challenge those feelings of empowerment in yourself and give yourself the opportunity to prove that myth wrong, that looking amazing equals feeling amazing.
I really like that. And, you know, you're reaching out to everyone individually. So it's like, you don't have it's not like this is the Bible that we have to follow, but it's giving us the tools to help ourselves individually, because we all have different experiences. So I really like how you put it that way, that it's an ideal and we have to realize it's not always real, right? And so we have to come back to ourselves, come back to our body as an instrument. I just wanted to, can we talk one more time about BMI and the healthcare? Lexie, I remember reading about you, how you started to advocate for yourself in the doctor's office, like when you were pregnant. So, you know, how do women out here tell doctors, like, my BMI doesn't actually tell you all my health records?
Oh, the best way to do that, when a doctor brings up your BMI and tells you to lose weight, the very best response you can have is, okay, can you point me toward any research that shows how to sustainably keep weight off? Because there's not one study that shows you can lose weight and keep it off. Not one. What all the studies show is that you can, like we talked about before, you can benefit your health internally through all the internal indicators of health, blood sugar, blood pressure, heart rate, blah, 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 on and on, by moving your body. Truly, it's through physical activity. Linz, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, if there's something that you're concerned about, if you know that you're going to a doctor who may likely bring up your BMI or whatever, like you mentioned in that question, then I think it helps to be proactive to ward it off in the first place. Mm-hmm. I know something I try to do to set the tone when I walk into the doctor's office and it has nothing to do with my weight. I will ask either to not be weighed, or if it's necessary for whatever metrics they need to measure on me, which it shouldn't be, then I say, hey, I don't want to see the number. The number sometimes, you know, holds certain ideals in my head, and I just don't care. Another thing you can do, in addition to that, with a doctor who is particularly hung up on this stuff, is to say, hey, doc, I am working on my health. And one of the things I've noticed over my whole life is that when I am focused on my weight, I am more likely to go into restrictive and then binging behaviors, or I'm more likely to be sedentary because I'm so ashamed of how I look, and so I don't want to exercise. Any of those things. Think of the ways that the shame has affected you and your health in adverse ways, if it has. And for most people it has. So it would be a likely scenario to talk to the doctor about and say, so anyway, this focus on fat, this focus on a number has been extremely counterproductive for me. And I guarantee this is true for many of your other patients. So if we're going to talk about my health today, help me talk about it in ways that are related to behaviors and not outcomes in terms of my weight and measurements and BMI. That stuff has never served me. I'm not going to rely on them anymore. And I'd like your help to move on. And if they're not willing to do that, get to a new doctor. There are others. There are people who are opening their minds to this, who are getting new training every day to be able to exist in a world that serves people who are fat without ruining their lives, without shaming them and making them feel so awful every time they go to seek healthcare. We need people to seek healthcare. That's how the whole population can become healthier and improve their lives. With shaming doctors, it's never going to work. So try to be transparent with them, not by saying, you know, like, I don't care about my weight, but instead approach it from an actual health focused perspective to say, this has harmed me being preoccupied with weight and size and BMI in the past. Help me focus on behaviors. Which internal measurements do you think we should look at today? Is there a blood panel? Should I be focused on my blood pressure, my heart rate, my cholesterol? Let's look at those things. And then you tell me, what I can be doing, and I'll work with you there.
So I did this with my doctor after reading your work. And I was like shaking, being like, I don't want to go on the scale. They were like, okay, great. And then one time they were like, well, we do want to get a weight. So I asked the nurse, I was like, okay, I just want to be blind weighed then. But then she read the number out loud. So it was like a fail, but we'll try again next time.
And they put it at the top of your chart. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then they print it out and hand it to you. And you're like,
I'm like, thank you so much. I will carry this paper with me. This is great.
Yeah.
It makes me so much. The question also said that she qualified based on her BMI. And so that's like a tricky thing. I've been reading some great posts about that lately. I qualified because of my BMI as well in New York. And what a great gift to be able to be getting my second shot on Wednesday. I'm thrilled about that. But also, like you, grapple with the idea that, okay, I am in good health. And yet this system says that I'm in such bad health and at such risk that I should get the vaccine before other people. It's something that I think is important to acknowledge, that may cause some shame to bubble up. That may cause some of that stigma that we feel as we go in there and have to justify why we're there or whatever. But I just want you to know that the BMI is such an ineffective indicator that if we can benefit from the use of that ineffective indicator of health status, then take full advantage of it. And there's no need to explain it to anyone. People shouldn't even be asking about why you qualified. I've found lately that a lot of people are saying, oh, that's inappropriate, you know?
That's a great point. But I do feel like BMI has been in the news like more often than not because of all the chatter around how it can be, you know, you're higher risk if you get COVID based on your BMI and all these other things that there isn't necessarily science to back up if you really start to dig into it.
Totally. Yeah, they're not talking about how people with a high BMI will suffer through their pain and their sickness because they don't want to go to the doctor and be told that it's because of their weight. That is fat phobia. That's where the systemic health issues are coming into action.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then I just thought there was a couple other questions here that I know we're running short on time.
I'll answer that one about objectification for kids. The other question, if you notice your friend has a history with anorexia, what's a good way to let them know you're worried? Don't talk to them about their anorexia. Just talk to them as a friend. How are you doing? What's going on? You just want to be able to let them be vulnerable to you. That's what I'd say. Because you don't really know if it's an anorexia thing or if it's a depression thing or why she might be losing weight. On the what shows or movies do you feel show less objectification for kids? This is very hard to find, but I am on it. Oh my gosh. For one thing, it is one of the ways that objectification shows up is in the lack of representation of girls in any way besides just being beautiful. So the first thing you want to do is find shows with female protagonists where females are lead characters. Then you want to find shows where those women or girls are doing anything else besides looking for love or being decorative. They need to be moving the plot forward in other ways. Some of the shows, I'm just talking off the top of my head right now, but in terms of Disney shows, Moana is by far the best one I could ever think of. I'm obsessed with Moana. Such a great show for kids, for girls especially, just bawled my way through it. On Netflix, the True series, it's like True and the Rainbow Kingdom and all of the accompanying things. She's a protagonist lead. It's not about her body. It's not objectifying. Really cute show. Rainbow Ruby is another good one. Go Dog Go, a new series on Netflix. It has a female dog that you wouldn't know because she's not decorated, and I love that so much. Those are just a few, and it'll lead you down rabbit holes to other good shows. And more are coming out all the time. The problem with so many shows, even like the really good ones, Princess and the Frog, has a Black female lead, but every female in Princess and the Frog is bam hourglass shaped like you wouldn't believe, only beautiful, nothing else. Oh, that stuff is so frustrating. So do what you can to find good representation of female characters. Oof, good luck.
And yes, Doc McStuffins, right? That's a great one.
Yes. Oh yeah. Love.
And Anne with an E, I've heard great things. So yes. And then to the question about getting the book plate. Yeah, we'll mail you a book plate.
Yes, definitely. Email us.
I'm going to put in a plug for Craig of the Creek too. which is on Cartoon Network for y'all who have older kids. It's got all sorts of girls doing all sorts of different things, and they are not decorative. And Kelsey, who is one of the protagonists, is a badass and is like, you know, it's got nothing to do with her body and everything to do with just her being awesome. So if you have older kids, then check that out. No.
Awesome.
I came in later than 5 minutes before because this has just been such a crazy good conversation full of so much insight and just so much loving care. Thank you so much for all of your insights and all of your stories and just everything that you've given to this hour. It's been such a gift. I really do hate to break it up, and it's already 8:30, but I just, are there any just final lingering thoughts before we wrap this up?
I would just say we're so grateful for everybody who's read this, who's reviewed it positively online. That makes a big difference. And for everyone who's shared it with somebody else that they think would benefit from it, that means the world to us. Just that the book can take on a life of its own. You know, it's 10 plus years of research wrapped into one little thing. And we just so appreciate that it's getting out there. So thank you all. And thank you for the opportunity through Silver Unicorn to be able to share this.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Kelly, Tiffany, any other final thoughts?
It's been amazing having you. And, you know, just as an announcement, the NAJDA group does a book club every month, Sunday night at 7:30. And we're always looking for more suggestions to talk about different forms of oppression, discrimination, to help become more aware of social justice in our communities.
Awesome. And just as a reminder, the Silver Unicorn is open for you. This beautiful book, More Than a Body, is available in the store right now, right in the front of the store on display. It's also available at silverunicornbooks.com. Book plates, it seems, are coming and going to be distributed all through Massachusetts. So if you would like a book plate, let us know, or put it in the comment section when you order your book from us online. The Silver Unicorn has events all the time, and there are a bunch coming up in April, in May, and in June. I've got to do the June stuff all this week. So if you love poetry, if you love middle grade, if you love YA, if you love sci-fi, we've got something for you, and we've got great events coming up. So we invite you to visit silverunicornbooks.com and check out our events page to find out more. Lindsay and Lexie, you're amazing. Your book is clearly amazing and life-changing for the women in Massachusetts. So just, I cannot thank you enough for spending an hour of your evening with us today.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it more than you know.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and stay safe. Stay safe out there, and stay healthy out there, however healthy is for you. Thank you, everyone. Take care and see you next time.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye, y'all.